So it's been a rough run for the Golden State Warriors. They've dropped from the 1st seed to the 8th seed in basically a month, and now they're just a half game from being out of the play-in entirely.
Yeah, it is crazy. At one point, we were going to make a video like we were wrong about the Warriors, just saying like, oh, the Warriors are great. They were 12-3. Everything was going great. And since then, they've been absolutely awful.
Before we start talking about the Warriors, if you haven't already, make sure you give this video a like, give us a subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on one of our videos. So Christmas was a hell of a day in the NBA. I mean, the NFL gave us 2 stinkers, but in the NBA, we got Wemby and Mikal Bridges going at each other, both dropping 40 in MSG. Mavericks nearly came back from a 28-point deficit against the Wolves. Philly nearly lost Joel Embiid before the game even started, and then went on to beat Boston in their own building. But probably the game of the day was when the Lakers marched into Golden State and left with a 115-113 win thanks to a game-winning layup from Austin Reeves. Lakers lost Anthony Davis after only 7 minutes, but LeBron dropped 31. AR-15, like I said, had 26, 10, and 10 triple-double and the game winner, and the Lakers hold on down the stretch despite Steph hitting a pair of crazy threes to keep the Warriors alive. And really, it's been a tale of 2 halves this season for Golden State. Like, going into the year, I don't think expectations were too terribly high. Like, their over-under was like 43.5, depending on where you went. They were plus 3,000 to win the title. They brought in Kyle Anderson, Buddy Hield. They lost Klay Thompson though, so like in our preseason video, I predicted under 40 wins. You were a bit more optimistic.
Yeah, I still think that was a bit harsh, but I mean, who knows with how they're playing. But yeah, I saw them as like, a decent offseason. You got some good role players. If Steph can still be Steph, especially coming off that Olympics, that they could be an okay team, probably still a play-in team. Either like you're out in the play-in or you're a first-round exit. That's kind of how I saw this team. The beginning of the season though, they were cooking. Of course, it starts with the Blazers. We were in the building watching them cook our team, and it really wasn't Steph at all. He was pretty quiet that night. Draymond didn't really do much either. It was Buddy Hield giving you 22 off the bench. It was Wiggins balling out as well. It was Moses Moody hitting threes. That was tough. And after that, like, they were kind of beating up on everyone else. I mean, like we said, they were 12-3, best record in the West. And sometimes, early in the season, you look at a record, you look at the schedule, and then you're like, yeah, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, you're beating up on the Pelicans, the Wizards,
the Blazers.
Yeah, the Blazers, the shit teams in the league. They had some pretty damn good wins if you look back at their schedule.
Yeah, I mean, on the road in overtime against Houston, on the road in Boston, on the road in Oklahoma City, at home against Dallas and Memphis. Like, they got their fair share of crappy teams. Weirdly enough, they got the Pelicans 3 times in the first month of the season.
So random.
Yeah, exactly. Weird. And of course, beating up on like the Blazers, it counts, but it doesn't count. Right. But I mean, still, for your first 15 games of the season to have road wins against Boston, OKC, and Houston, and then home wins against Dallas and Memphis, like, that's a pretty solid resume right there. But ever since that point, they have fallen off a cliff. Like, after they got their 12th win of the season against New Orleans, they went on a 5-game losing streak, including a game where they dropped an 18-point lead to a Brooklyn team, missing quite a few of their starters. And like, since then, they've picked up 3 wins. Again, they beat the Rockets, weirdly enough, and then the Timberwolves twice. But like we said earlier, lost to the Lakers on Christmas Day. That dropped them to 15-14 on the season. Only 3-10 in their last 13 games. Remember, I said it's been a tale of 2 halves. 12-3 in your first 15, 3-10 in your last 13. Like, it doesn't get much more opposite than that.
Yeah, and there's still the A seed in a super tightly packed Western Conference. Like, they still have a lot of time to turn things around. They trade for a superstar player. We'll talk more about that later. You could still even like push up to the 5th seed with how tight the West is, but
or simultaneously you could fall down to like the 11th seed.
Yeah, you could fall like behind the Kings down there if things keep going bad like this. First, you got to mention like Steph Curry is not a top 5 player anymore. He's not a top 2 guard. He's like, around like a top 10 player, like that range, maybe like 8 or 9.
He's still very good.
Yeah, he's still very good, but this isn't 2021 Steph where throw him out with whoever and he's still gonna win you games dropping 32 a night. He's averaging 21.8, which if you throw out the 2019-20 season where he only played 5 games, that's the lowest he's averaged in a season since 2012. And even even though he's shooting 40% from three, like his 3-point numbers are still pretty good. His shooting percentage as a whole is down. I'm not going to blame it on him. When he's off the court, the offense is just horrific. There's like no other shot creators on the roster, and he's 36 damn years old. He's not like LeBron who has AD. He's not even like KD who has Book there. Like, dude has no one else to help him, but at the same time, he's not Steph Curry from 2021, from 2022, or of course, like the prime Steph Curry back in the day.
Yeah, but I mean, the Warriors still started 12-3, even when he wasn't having his statistically best season. So something clearly has gone wrong. And well, the role players have really failed to maintain their hot starts. Like, that was the big thing going into the season. It's like, okay, let's give Steph the best supporting cast possible. You know, he doesn't have a superstar teammate, so let's try to have a deep roster, a deep bench, all that. Kuminga and Wiggins, I think, have been fine. Like, they're not massive difference makers or anything. They still have their frustrating moments, especially Kuminga, but, you know, Wiggins is giving you like 18 points per game on what, like 46, 47% shooting, above 40% from three. Kuminga around, you know, 15, 16 points a game, above 45% shooting from the field. He's not a great 3-point shooter, but, you know, they're fine. Buddy Hield's been the biggest fall off. I mean, early in the season, he was looking like a guy who could win not just most improved player, but maybe 6th man of the year as well. I mean, he was averaging 20 plus points per game early in the season. He was shooting close to 50% from three. And since then, like, he's basically fallen back to exactly what he was last year, which is like, you know, 12 points per game, decent shooting or whatever. Like, still a solid player, but considering what he started at, like, he has fallen off big time. And then Pods, while he did have a great start to the season, like, he's been a big disappointment.
I mean, maybe we should have seen this coming for both of them. At least Buddy Hield should have seen this coming. Buddy Hield always does this shit.
Yeah.
Like, he'll shoot lights out like crazy, and then
again, like, the Warriors had us believing Jordan Poole was like a future all-star for a year. So I never put it past them to find like a diamond in the rough somehow.
Hey, with the way Jordan Poole's been shooting recently, like, they regret that trade.
Yeah,
I mean, it wasn't going to work with the whole Draymond Green thing anyways, but that's the exact player they need right now is a Jordan Poole. For Pods, though, like, he was coming off rookie season. He was like a mid to late first round pick. I don't know why they were so high on him, and I think to a certain extent they are still high on him. They're just kind of thinking this is a slump so far, but the fact that he was untouchable, the report was in the Lauri Markkanen trade,
outrageous.
Just insane. And who knows, maybe this is a sophomore slump like we've seen with players before, but they were just way too high on him, and they have this weird track record of being way too high on their prospects and then also like not playing them enough or all that, like them not really developing them.
Weirdly enough, I think Pods' problem, at least in the eyes of Warriors fans, is that he's playing too much.
That is, yeah.
I mean, again, Pods is a young player. He's still trying to learn the game, right? And I get the organization's probably high on him. I get Steve Kerr's probably high on him, but he fucks up a lot on the court.
Oh, he does.
And he's allowed to get away with it a lot. When you have guys on the bench, especially like a Kyle Anderson, who you brought in probably to just play like 25 minutes a game and play defense, and he's picking up like DNPs the past couple games. Meanwhile, you know, Pods is still getting his 25 minutes a game. And then the Warriors' big acquisition this season of Dennis Schroeder. So far, it's been an absolute bust. And I say so far because it's only been 4 games. And Schroeder in 23 games for Brooklyn this season, you know, 18.5 points per game on pretty solid shooting. They figured, you know, he could probably be a guy that, you know, takes some pressure off Steph, can run the pick and roll, can get his own shot, because that's not really like what Buddy Hield does. He's much more of like a catch and shoot type player. So, you know, you bring in Schroeder. First game was that 51-point blowout against the Grizzlies. So real solid start right there. And it's really not gotten much better. I mean, I guess he did just have his best game as a Warrior against the Lakers where he scored 11 points. Again, it's still super early. You know, it's 4 games, so we're going to give him time, but early returns are not promising.
I still do really like the move because they need a guy like this who can create a little bit, run a pick and roll. I still like the move, essentially traded like 2 future seconds for a rental, so I think it could work out, but it hasn't worked out so far. And it is worth remembering if you look at things from the grand scale, the Warriors over-under was 43.5. So having 15 wins through 29 games, that's about on track. It's just the fact that you start 12-3, you're somehow in the first seed, you're shocking everyone, you have these big wins, to being now recently the biggest disappointment in the NBA as of recent. And the Warriors essentially have a decision on their hands, and it really comes from like, are they gonna make a big trade? Are they gonna try to get Jimmy Butler? Steph apparently spoke to the players recently in a players-led meeting talking about like, this is a turning point in the season, and it 100% is with the West so tightly packed. But they kind of got to decide like, are they gonna try to maximize this Steph Curry era one last time, or do they want to keep Kuminga? Do they want to keep Pods? And essentially say like, you know, Steph and Draymond, they're not not going to win another championship. We know that. So we're going to kind of build towards the future.
Yeah, I mean, the Warriors have been trying like this 2-track system for a while where they're trying to, maximize Steph, but also prep for the future. And neither's really working. Like, they're not a championship contender, and they really haven't been since 2022. And you look at like their future prospects, it's not that impressive. Kuminga, we're getting to his 4th year, and I'm still not seeing a lot of like star potential. I know you're a little higher on him than I am, but
I do like Kuminga. I like his game. I think honestly, Steve Kerr hasn't done the greatest job developing him. Like, you got him starting 5 games in a row, and then you're benching him because you want to play better defense, and you give up 144 points to the Grizzlies the next night. I don't get that. I still like Kuminga, but besides that, there's not much. I think they've kind of just fumbled a lot of big decisions, like drafting James Wiseman. I think there was a potential to have this kind of like 2-track system here if the Jordan Poole situation didn't flame out so bad, but as currently, like, yeah, this ain't working.
Yeah, I think they got to pick one or the other. Like, they either got to be like, we're full into maximizing Steph's potential. In that case, you ring up Miami and you see what they want for Jimmy Butler. And if that's Pods and Kuminga, so be it. And if you want to set yourself up for the future, and this might be a really radical thing to say, trade Steph.
Damn.
Like, they're not going to do that just from a business perspective, ticket sales, merch sales, national TV games, all that. They're not going to. Also, he's the greatest player in franchise history.
Yeah, respect
They want him to retire a Warrior, right? They're not going to do it. But if in a vacuum, they were just trying to maximize the potential of the team going forward, you're still going to get a haul for Steph, even with the way he's played this year and his age. Like, as painful as it would be, you do what Boston did when they traded away Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett. Like, that was painful. That hurt Celtics fans. And in the long run, it was absolutely the right thing to do. But if you're not going to do that, I think you need to go all in and try to maximize Steph's potential. Because if the Warriors have taught us anything over the past 3 seasons, is that they've been unable to do both at the same time. That's the video, guys. What do you think the Warriors should do? I'd love to hear what you have to say in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving it a like, as it really does help us out. And while you're here, why not check out some of our other videos as well? And don't forget to subscribe to Synthetic Sports.